Delegation is one of those topics that gets talked about endlessly in leadership. Books, podcasts, consultants, mentors, everyone agrees it's important. Everyone knows they should be doing more of it. And yet a lot of leaders I speak to have delegated plenty and still feel like everything sits with them. They've handed tasks over, they've got people in place, they're technically not doing the work anymore, but the pressure hasn't moved. They're still thinking about it, still waiting for the call, still feeling responsible if it all goes wrong. And that's the part I wanted to talk about today, because delegation isn't really about letting go of the work. It's about deciding where pressure is allowed to live. Welcome to the Lead World channel, where we explore the inner world of leadership, well-being, and what it means to build a business that doesn't break you. Hi, my name's Trevor. I run a multi-award-winning hospitality business, and I didn't come into this industry with a hospitality background. I built the business from the ground up, learning as I went, figuring it out in real time. And from very early on, I wore being capable like a badge of honor. If something needed doing, I did it. If something went wrong, I fixed it. If someone needed support, I stepped in. That mindset helped me build momentum. It helped me survive the early years, and for a long time it felt like good leadership. As the business grew, I started delegating, on paper at least, and people took on roles, responsibilities were assigned, tasks moved off my plate, but something didn't change. The pressure stayed with me. Even when I wasn't doing the thing anymore, I was still carrying it. And for a long time, I couldn't work out why delegation wasn't giving me the relief that everyone promised it would. Most delegation advice focus on efficiency, how to save time, how to get more done, how to stop being the bottleneck. And that advice isn't wrong, it's just incomplete, because most leaders watching this don't have a delegation knowledge problem. They know what delegation is. They know they should be doing more of it. They may even feel guilty for not doing it properly. But the real issue isn't workload, it's pressure. You can delegate tasks and still carry the responsibility internally. And you can step away operationally and still feel like you're on call emotionally. And when that happens, delegation doesn't reduce load, it just changes its shape. This is something I see all the time. A leader delegates a task but stays mentally involved. They hand something over, but they're still checking, still worrying, still anticipating the problems. They tell themselves they're being responsible, but what is actually happening is that pressure hasn't moved. It's just become invisible. You're not doing the work, but you're still carrying the outcome. And that's exhausting in a very specific way, because it means that you never fully switch off. Even when you're away from work, part of your attention is still tied up. That's not rest, that's suspended responsibility. Here's the part that rarely gets talked about honestly. Most leaders don't struggle with delegation because they don't trust their team. They struggle because they trust themselves. They trust their own judgment, their own standards, their own ability to step in when something goes wrong. And when you built a business by being capable, stepping back feels risky. Not because other people are incompetent, but because you know you can do it. So delegation becomes partial. You hand over the execution, but keep ownership emotionally. That's not a character flaw, that's an identity pattern. For a long time, my identity inside the business was tied to being needed, being the person who sorted things out, being the safety net, being the one who people turned to when they felt uncertain. And that felt good, it felt important, it felt like leadership. But it also meant that even when I delegated, I stayed psychologically involved. I wasn't leading, I was containing everything. And that's where pressure quietly accumulates. Here's the reframe that changed how I see delegation. Delegation isn't about letting go of work, it's about distributing pressure. Every task carries pressure with it. Decision pressure, outcome pressure, responsibility pressure. And if you delegate the task but keep the pressure, nothing really changes. The work leaves your hands, the weight stays in your body. Proper delegation only works when responsibility moves with the task. When delegation truly works, three things move together: ownership, decision making, and emotional responsibility. And if someone owns a task, they also own the decisions around it. And if they own the decisions, they need space to make them without you hovering. That's the uncomfortable part, because it means allowing things to be done differently, allowing small mistakes, allowing learning to happen without you stepping in. But without that, delegation is performative. One of the hardest things for me to accept was my constant involvement didn't actually reduce risk. It just made me tired. I told myself I was preventing problems. In reality, I was delaying my own relief. Because no system can scale if pressure collapses back into the person every time something feels uncertain. Delegation that doesn't move pressure just concentrates it. Undelegated pressure doesn't always look dramatic. It looks like checking messages constantly, thinking about work when you're supposed to be present, feeling responsibility for things that you didn't do, reacting emotionally when something goes wrong. It's subtle, and because it's subtle, people normalize it. They tell themselves, this is just leadership, this is just the job, this is what responsibility feels like. But for a while, that story holds until it doesn't. For me, the shift came when I realized that delegation wasn't failing. My approach to pressure was. I noticed that even when things went well, I felt tense. Even when others handled things competently, I stayed alert. I wasn't resting, I was waiting. And waiting is exhausting. I realized that if I wanted relief, something had to change. Not the team, not the tasks, but me. What changed when I let pressure move? The hardest part of proper delegation wasn't handing things over. It was tolerating the discomfort of not stepping in, letting decisions be made without me, letting outcomes happen without my constant involvement, letting people learn without rescuing them. At first, it felt irresponsible. Then something surprising happened. The pressure lifted. Not because nothing went wrong, but because it wasn't landing on me automatically anymore. And with that shift came clarity. One of the biggest benefits of proper delegation is improved decision quality. When you're not carrying everything, your thinking becomes clearer. You stop reacting, you stop firefighting, you start leading again. Delegation didn't make me less involved in the business, it made me less exposed. Delegation and boundaries are inseparable. If people can always escalate back to you, pressure will always find its way back. Clear boundaries don't make you distant. They make leadership sustainable. They tell the business where pressure belongs and where it doesn't. Without boundaries, delegation collapses. If delegation hasn't worked for you yet, it doesn't mean that you're bad at it. It likely means responsibility and identity are still fused. And that's common, especially in businesses built by capable people. And it can be redesigned. As you listen to this, it might be worth asking yourself, what am I still carrying that I've technically delegated? Where am I the emotional backstop without actually realizing it? What pressure am I choosing to keep? These aren't questions to judge yourself with, they're questions to create awareness. Delegation isn't about letting go. It's about deciding where pressure is allowed to live. When pressure moves with responsibility, leadership becomes lighter. Not easy, but lighter. And that lightness isn't indulgence, it's sustainability. For a long time, I thought delegation would free up my time. What it actually freed was my internal space. And that's what allowed me to lead longer, steadier, and without losing myself in the process. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and a subscribe. It helps me, it helps the channel, and it helps people like us find the content that really matters. And as always, I'd love to remind you that you matter too. Don't forget that.